Good morning to you. Good morning to everybody, and thank you for all those that are here today. I'd like to call this meeting today of the Downtown Development Authority to order, and we will start with our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance.
Father, thank you so much for everyone here. We just pray that you would give us united minds as we plan on our plates today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the spot for our first public comment. Anybody who wishes to speak before us has 3 minutes to do so. Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve. Second.
Second, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the March 13th, 2023 meeting? We have a first? And we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. We'll move right into the presentations. Philip, I believe you're on.
Before you is the final draft of the RFQ. I know we've gone through the rough draft, we've gone through different elements of it. So I'm actually, unless you want me to focus on anything in particular, I'm going to focus on 2 items that are of importance: the schedule, and I'm also going to just focus on the evaluation factors to make sure they're what we're looking for. So this is the schedule that we have in the final document, that we will advertise this RFQ a month from today. So in May, we will have a question submission deadline shortly thereafter. That's going to be for anybody that has questions about the RFQ. If we need to make any addenda, things like that, we'll have our addenda deadline will be in June. The submission deadline will be in June, middle of June, so 2 months from today. And we'll notify our shortlist shortly thereafter. That's going to be, that shortlist notification is going to be done by a group of you, either all of you, or if you want to select a small committee amongst yourselves to actually do the RFQ reviews and select who you want to go with. We'll do applicant interviews July, and we will issue a notification of intent to select basically the following week, just a couple of days. We won't need a lot of time. Usually we sit down, we look through our short list of people, we have them come in, do their presentations, and you will be able to make a decision pretty quickly. Time between that and our notification. DDA approval meeting will be shortly thereafter, probably about 2 or 3 weeks after that, in August. And then September 11th is just how it seemed to work out in terms of even number of weeks. But on September 11th, we will actually execute the contract and begin. Don't have, usually after that, there would be another scheduled item to say when the project's going to be complete. Don't have a great idea about what that's going to look like. We still need to apply for funding from the FCDA, from Georgia Cities, things like that. So it will probably be a little bit of an unknown element going in there, but we do have our knowns on how we want to start and where we want to go. So that's going to be that's the tentative. Well, that's the schedule that we have right now, unless you have changes.
Applying for funding, do you that after you've selected your?
That's how we're going to proceed, yes. So, and the applicants would just need to be aware of that. This is a process that's going to take a little bit of time. So if they're in a really strong rush that they need a location, this is going to be one of those situations where it's going to be economically, you know, a lot lower impact on a particular tenant, but, you know, it will be something that takes time for us to put together. So it'll be a little bit of a journey, so.
Philip, explain why we wouldn't, just so that I understand, or we all understand, why we can't start applying for whatever, you know, either grants or loans at this stage of the game.
The first step that we need to take, and we'll be bringing this before you, but the first step that we'll need to take is essentially getting quotes on exactly what it's gonna cost for us to get what we need. So Georgia Cities and the Department of Community Affairs, they're not gonna, if we request 200,000 from each of those entities, they're gonna say, well, what's the basis for that money? And DCA in particular is looking for, we provide gap financing. So so you say it's gonna be this much, you've gotten this much from other entities, what's, prove the amount that you need from us, essentially. So we'll continue to work towards that. Right now, of course, getting quotes and getting basically a preliminary design is gonna be part of that. So, you know, direction that we wanna go. That's something that we'll have to do. And a big portion of that is kind of contingent upon the partnership that we make with the future tenant. They're gonna wanna be involved in that. So.
Sure. Okay, thank you. With regards to meeting and interviewing the applicants, I mean, I for one, and I think that I would like to be part of that. And when I say I mean us in some fashion, whether it's all of us or, you know, a small party. Would everybody agree with that?
Yeah, I think
So-
I think in terms of the applicant interview, like the selection committee, if all of you want to be a part of that, I think that would be fine. And, Brandon and I would probably be present for those meetings, but we wouldn't have a vote necessarily. So that would be fine. We typically don't want over 10 people on a selection committee, so 7 would be.
Now, when they present, is that the open records deal as well?
Yeah, I mean, once they present information, I mean, these will be open meetings, because if you have a quorum of the members present, that will have to be advertised as an open meeting. But, you know, if you don't have a quorum present, if you have a different selection committee, that won't be an open meeting.
But when say we choose 3 or 4 people to interview and they come to talk to us, is that an open or is that an executive?
That would probably be a discussion.
Okay.
Especially in a bid.
I was just saying, because if we're all here, they can come and present to us then.
Yeah, and if they're making presentations.
Now, I mean, your selection process, like as you're going through your evaluation criteria and you're having discussions, if an entire quorum of the board is present, those will be open discussions. If it's not a quorum of the board present and you want to have those discussions as private, you know, so that they're not in an open meeting and you can select, then those would be private discussions as you go through talking amongst yourselves, how you're you know, weighing different applicants.
And I apologize, I didn't fully review this. Why not advertise it now? Why the month? When I haven't discussed this, I'm just on the same page with you. Why we're waiting a month before we advertise? If they approve it today, why not shave 30 days?
It was a conservative timeline because we didn't have this approved, so it just gives us that ability to have some buffer room there. Once we put this out for advertisement, just from a staff perspective, I'm gonna have to really start to have a lot of ducks in a row. So it just gave me a little bit of time to work with that. But we can bump it up 2 weeks, or we can bump it up, you know, as soon.
All right. So Any other questions for Philip?
No, question, you know, once, you know, we've got to have a contractor. So I assume that's town selection, not
No,
the
no, that'd be
landlord
yours.
selection.
That would be
I
your
mean, not the
selection.
tenant selection.
Yeah, no, that would be your selection. You can, if you want to have that as a joint decision between you and your future partner, you can do that. That would be yours. The town wouldn't be involved at all.
We have to advertise that work
I don't think so.
for quotes or bids.
I don't think we have to advertise for quotes or bids for that, although you probably would want to get multiple quotes. But I don't think that the DDA is held to the same.
Architecturals. Working on that when obviously we can't do that until we select.
Yeah, and I mean, we can get started on, so we can get started on some of that before we have a tenant selected, if you want. It's, you know, we just want to allow enough flexibility for that development partner to be able to come in and say, you know, changes are gonna be beneficial. We can start on some of those rough quotes if you want, anytime. We are, so there's a little bit of, from the DDA perspective and the funding necessary to get somebody together to kind of be a consultant on that. We don't have a whole lot of money, you know, to kind of put, what we're awaiting is that transfer of that state county development authority money that the town was issuing. We're gonna be looking at putting that towards the DDA, hopefully soon. That will give you a lot more kind of breathing room to be able to hire a consultant and know that you're gonna have, if you wanted to get started early, before getting grants.
And then, good.
Are we guiding and choosing architecture and, I mean, how much is us and how much is
That's up to you.
Our bond,
Yeah, although, you know, we did put in the, we put in this RFQ that the, you know, as the project goes forward, those architecturals are gonna be ultimately in line with what we wanna see downtown. So it's gonna be in line with our town center architectural overlay, the town center plan, the comp plan. All of those things are gonna guide what the architecture looks like. And you as the, you know, itself can have, I mean, you have kind of the commanding, you know, role in determining that architecture as well. So you decide kind of how much you want to allow that relationship to.
Or the goal with bringing on a partner now was not so that they have, but guys didn't want to get into kind of restaurant and then find a partner to come in and, okay, here's what you got. And then we don't know what that particular restaurant's gonna need. So they're gonna come in and they're gonna partner with you all through the whole process. All are gonna have, like Philip said, definitely want their feedback on, okay, here's dining room to look like and that kind of thing. So it's a true partnership on the design rather than us restaurant and saying, here you go, make it work.
Well, we're,
I know that there are architects that I'm familiar with are backlogged. I just think we need to keep that in mind, obviously, as you're looking for a contractor as well. Involving them not too early, but early enough to say, hey, we've got a project coming up that, you know, gauge their interest and engage their availability.
That's why I brought up the timing too. I mean, just being, I want everybody to be realistic, have realistic expectations of the project because I tell you, and everybody in this, on the staff can tell you when it comes to projects that we've been working on lately, the only thing you can count on is
A delay.
Delays, yeah.
And it all, you know, we get, you know, the public feedback is, well, y'all just aren't doing enough or blah, blah, blah. But, you know, there's things, one of those over the last 2 or 3 years has been delayed. So, just have realistic expectations, and it's gonna take some time. That's why I was talking about, why wait a month?
Like that idea.
Well, our goal here is to have a long-term relationship with whomever becomes our partners in that. So I think that their feedback into it, and they're gonna probably have a little bit better idea of what they need and what they would like than we would. So I agree with that, yes.
An approval meeting. September 11th. Other side looks at this.
All right, well, we understand that the schedule is an estimate, if you will,
We
and
can flex on the schedule if we need to. And yeah, in terms of selecting somebody, we can have some more discussions about, if we want to do a design build. If you do design build, we basically would start by putting out, requesting, partner with on design build, and then the restaurant, when they come in, they just utilize whoever we've selected. They're still a part of the design process, but we've already got the contractor, we've already got the architect lined up, and we can do that too.
very good.
Philip, on the financing side of it, what kind of terms do they usually use for that? 5 year, 10 years?
I think they're 10-year loans. And those interest rates are currently, I think, below 3% for those.
All right, so
10 straight or 10 with the 20?
A good question.
Meeting we had with everybody over there. Pretty brief, and it was pretty high level. And then the
Yeah. The easiest one to go for is going to be, so far as my research, is going to be the Georgia Cities Foundation. They're going to be the easiest one to go for first. The last is going to be Department of Community Affairs. The Fayette County Development Authority, I would say, would be the easiest. It's just that we don't have any real, that looks like. They don't really, it doesn't seem to be something that they,
not fully prepared yet. They've got this, funding.
Question about the, on the building. Obviously, we've got some idea of what we want town buildings to look like on the front. We've done our LCI and all that. So I'm curious, I haven't seen that photo or that rendering in a while. Is the roof gonna stay? Is that part of the design moving forward?
that's entirely something for you guys to discuss, however you want that roof to look. I will say, obviously just
That was polite.
as a default, I call it Pizza Hut architecture. This is what I call it. But, and it's pretty present. It's called a mansard roof is what that is. It's a architectural element. But, that roof, if you want to do something with it, you can. I will say, funding wise, that's going to be a very expensive alteration if you want to alter the structure of that roof. We obviously need a new roof, just material, like it just needs a new roof, like shingles or something. But if we were to structurally alter that, let's just say you put in like just a different roof, like it's not that mansard style roof, that would be probably something that would chew pretty heavily into cost. But maybe adding dormers, I don't know, something to kind of break it up. I agree. That would
Yeah.
probably.
That's
But that's
probably
up
the
to you
single
guys.
biggest feedback point I've
We're,
ever
uh,
gotten in this town.
Yeah.
is
We're gonna
those
be
roofs.
changing our front to metal.
Yeah, that's gonna help too. That
That'll
would
give some
help.
idea.
That's what I was gonna say, for time, and longevity and all that, metal is always great, and it would look a lot, clean it up.
Yeah.
Look a lot better, and if you put it kind of like signs where partners is it's off, kind of sets out, that's kind of your dormer look for the
Yeah.
sign.
Yeah.
So then you can dress up the front of that, so it's not so, Pizza Hut-ish.
Yeah. Yeah, that,
What-
that,
Protect us for.
that
What
mansard
about
style
the-
roof is all.
The other building closer to the street, I mean, our applicants may not want to utilize that or even be thinking about that. Are we still gonna go ahead and try to get that done?
What closer to the street?
That second
auxiliary
building in the
building.
rendering.
That was really just kind of part of the market analysis that showed that property could handle an extra building in terms of intensity. That's entirely up to you guys if you want to pursue.
I just think that would hide some of that front aesthetic of the fire station currently.
And that could be a means of, a next phase of this property, of this development. If you want to look at adding a small building in the front on that right, if you're facing the building on the right-hand side, you can kind of integrate that into the design so that whatever is located there is something that can be easily taken away and replaced with a building. That's entirely up.
One thing, and maybe I'm just overlooking, I don't see how we could execute a contract with what I'm seeing here on the schedule, because we have no idea to tell them how much they're gonna pay a month in rent. Because we don't know how much this project's gonna cost.
Yeah, I mean, that contract execution, that time frame between the approval and contract execution is rather tight. I mean, it's less than a month. So we can always bump that contract execution back if you wanted to. Because yeah, we will need to understand. Now, the contract may not, if we don't have all of our funding together and we don't have what that looks like, the contract may not include specifically what it is going to be monthly. It may be, something that's to be determined. It feels a little shaky, I know, but that might be part of it. Because it's just difficult to kind of go forward without having the grant money in tow. It's kind of a chicken and the egg type of thing. We got to be able to put together a design to get the grant money. Can't get the grant money before you put together the design.
All the applicants need to know. Gray area for us, this is brand new. To it with a rent is not going to exceed that. Have to adjust to do specifics there, but you're entering into a partnership with us so that we know what you need, we know what we want. Now we can go forward with mine and know what our loan numbers are gonna be.
Yeah. And we're not going to start on the contract or the lease agreement structure. We're not going to start on that only after the approval meeting. We'll probably start on formulating some of that over the next 4 months. So that when we get to that point of having an approval meeting, we'll know, the structure of what this contract and what these lease agreements are.
So are you gonna bump up the advertisement date and then push back the contract date to at least October?
We can do that. If you guys want to
feel like we should be able to make a decision on our applicants by the end of July. That would move that approval meeting up a couple weeks, and then that gives us another maybe 2 months or a month and a half for the final contract and all that.
Applicant to
Correct.
discuss what they want,
Gives us more time, then they can structure the contract better. We can have a rough kind of idea of what we want, but then they might have some input as well. So, and then we can kind of, right. I feel like we can make an approval on the applicants prior to where we have it here.
I'll have to go back in the schedule. A lot of these dates are very specific around your meeting. So, there's not as much play as we think there, even though there's a lot of number of days in between, unless we're willing to do a lot of special called meetings. This was scheduled around you guys being able to have, take a breath throughout this process too, and have these just line up. I'll kind of have to go back and crunch numbers to see where things can be condensed. We also want a certain amount of time in between some of these things, so I don't want to crunch to notification of shortlist and then application is, you don't want to crunch two things too close together to not give you enough time to make a selection. Or something that's not really kind of an industry standard to allow those people to get their stamp. So we can go back if you want me to, and Ally, you can tell me if you think that board with an approval with revised times, or if you think revising the times is not going to be still after approval. No, approval of this RFQ.
you need to make sure you have. At the notification of.
That particular day and to select is, that's the approval meeting day. It lined up, so April 14th is your regularly scheduled August 14th is your regularly scheduled August meeting.
But your notification.
So we'd have to bump up, so if we wanted to select and approve our applicant before April 14th, our regularly scheduled meeting was July 10th, which is before our applicant interviews we have scheduled. So unless we had another special called meeting in July, after our July 10th meeting,
Our notification of intent is where we've already chosen someone to.
So. That's problematic.
So for us, they can start working on ironing out contract items after the 24th. That's good, I think. Yeah.
And how does this all play out?
I don't think we have to change that then.
Do we need to look at the timeline differently, assuming we're going to send this out sooner than May 17th? Do we need to, like, I know May 1st is a good 2-week mark from today. Do we want to try to make that official where we go out a little sooner and speed up this timeline some?
we can, like I said, I'm gonna have to crunch numbers. A lot of these dates were kind of positioned around your regularly scheduled meetings. Have to see how that lines up and where I can move things. There were just a couple of other things involved in those. I would have to be able to get on a calendar and try and work that out right now. So
Yeah.
But for today, we are going to at least vote on the approval of the RFQ. Yes, go ahead, Ernie.
Question, should there be an application fee?
We haven't talked about, I wouldn't,
Okay.
it would be my opinion personally that I'd say no.
No.
Does anybody disagree with that?
I'm not sure what they're paying in yet.
Okay, gotcha.
No.
Somewhere in this process, review. At it again and see.
Well, if I may, Philip has in in our last packet here, has sent out the Envision Tyrone and also the comprehensive plan, which covers all of that. And Philip, again, I've said it, thank you for all of that hard work and doing all of that. So, I mean, we do have that accessible to us if everybody does take a chance to go through that and see that. He's got it very well documented here and, detailed, so it's kind of given us everything that we need. That being the case, any other questions any other thoughts or questions?
And I'm just this is just me going through this timeline, kind of working around those meeting dates and things. Might be able to bump, because we want enough time, like I said, between some of like the notification of shortlist and application interviews. Want time, once we've notified shortlist, for those applicants to prepare for their interview. But I think we might be able to bump these dates up one, like as you see it. So instead of the July, basically at the end, your DDA approval meeting, instead of it being on 8/14, so July or August 14th, have to be a special called meeting in July, like July. So it would be that notification of intent to select date. We'd be able to bump things up there. So we'd be able to save maybe 2 to 3 weeks if we.
In the scheme of things, I think just having the clarification that once we notify someone that our intent is there, then it gives Ally and the legal party enough time to start preparing, meeting with them, finding what
Yeah,
they really need.
I don't think we want to shrink
change
the
it.
time that it takes to deal with all the important details, but just the getting it advertised and getting a selection. And then still, until you have the contractor and you have the estimates, you can't do.
All righty. Does anybody make a motion to approve the request for the qualifications?
Motion to approve it.
Okay, we have a first and we have a second for Ernie. Okay, any discussion? All in favor to approve it? Passes, okay. Philip, I still believe you got the floor regarding the Motiners on the May 5th.
So, contract, the Motowners actually, we went back and forth, with them, and they actually signed everything. We're have any specific questions about the contract, Linda or I can questions, but they've signed their portion, so we're just.
So if I'm reading this correctly, the actual cost for the Motown is $4,700. We've paid them a deposit of $2,350 at this point in time? Okay, all right.
They have a rain date? A rain date?
We have a rain date?
But not only for this one.
Is it possible that we would just bump it to the next day?
Saturday.
Because I'm wondering if they would already be, I mean, maybe they would already have plans, but it seems like it would be a natural, like, oh, not today, it's raining.
Well, we also need to check with our illustrious people as to what activities are happening at that park. Because I noticed as you're going forward, you've got a lot of Saturday activities that are already programmed.
Yeah, I think a good way that might give some flexibility on that is we do these on the first Friday of the month. It means that we have the entire rest of the Fridays of that month to perhaps reschedule something, and it allows conflict. So we could just say that our rain date would be another Friday in that month.
What does the contract allow for a cancellation?
Flying here.
We had that last year with one of the groups where they set up and then it rained out. So how do we avoid that? Or is there a way that we can kind of protect ourselves with, I mean, yes, we gave them a substantial deposit. I understand they're planning travel and getting their reservations and whatever. But is there a way that we can pay that forward in the sense like, hey, instead of here's $2,300 and if it rains, we're out? Or can we say, hey, look, we want the ability to get you again. We've already given you the money, so just can we reschedule later on? Is there a way to put that in our contract?
Definitely add that to the contract.
Just so we're not out that initial deposit.
I know like with fireworks.
Yeah.
They certainly worked with us, allowed us to move.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey,
A 10% restocking fee, you know, or whatever.
We are going to have questions.
Well, this is an issue that we have with all of our activities. It's we can only, all we can do is pray for great weather.
So if it was God forbid. The motel is the one we're talking
Right. Well, I think we have to collectively, Brandon, did
I'm reading the contract now.
I've wondered, I mean, there is, and I don't know if it's available.
Should
Years
the-
past, I used the tent.
I think it's important that everybody has skin in the game, you know, and weather happens, you know, it happens to all of us the same, you know, so, I'd like to see something in there that, I mean, I'm not trying to stiff the Motowners on any money. Lord knows they need it, but, you know, I'd like to see them agree to come back. You know, maybe they keep a portion of our deposit if we have a rain out, not the whole thing. And that portion just covers, I don't know, whatever it needs to cover. And then the remainder of the deposit we give them is used towards the next event. Okay.
The cancellation be required, deposit will be applied to a new rescheduled. Alternatively, at the option of either party, which shall have no liability to the artist for any payment.
Perfect.
See, there,
Yeah. that's
both
perfect.
that, we got both skin in the game with that right there.
Good.
That was a rewrite, and this group agreed to that. They were amazing.
Yeah, no doubt.
I remember putting it in and thinking they wouldn't.
And I understand, I mean, they're traveling, I mean, it can be the day of, and, you know, that's what happened last time, we just, sorry it rained, I mean, we didn't know, it's Georgia, you know? So I understand, you know, they have housing and all that they have to deal with.
But just for my own direction, when I'm reviewing, that was redrafted wholly with no direction. Do we?
Right, well, and I feel like that should be fair, I mean,
Yeah.
if they're here and it's a day of and we cancel because of
Been
weather.
for rain, now that's for rain, that's all
Yeah.
those sorts of things, so. Typically you keep.
Right.
you keep some portion, but what portion would you want them? I'll make sure that's part of the contracts that we look at. I need to know what portion.
What is typically, I mean, like a standard?
Day of cancellation, they should get something, if, you know, a week before, that's a
They've
different
asked
story.
for a very large deposit, normally
Right.
it's not half. Normally a deposit is smaller and you would keep like 10. Right. But I don't want to be unfair to our providers either.
Correct.
That's not the direction we want to go in. So 0 is, I don't have a problem saying, hey, keep
10%,
yeah.
Yeah, I like, mhm.
Oh,
Well, is it 10% of the contract amount or the
Right.
deposit?
It depends on how they draft what the deposit amount is. So deposit is 10% of the contract amount, fine, keep the deposit. In this case, the deposit was well over half of what the full contract.
So 10% of the
Right.
fee, the total
Of the whole
Cost.
contract fee.
Right, that would be,
That's just the rain out,
That seems
rain
fair.
out fee that they get,
Right.
sorry, and then we move on and we'll, if
Right.
we reschedule them, we reschedule.
we don't have to allow them anything. This one, we didn't. Don't have to say, hey, you can keep any amount of the deposit at all. It does seem a little bit
It's
harsh
steep.
when they're coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That may be an oversight on their part, you know, more than likely, but it won't happen
I
again.
was expecting this one to come back to me before they signed it.
Yeah.
And it didn't, so.
Yeah.
They may not realize what they signed.
Yeah.
And if it does go bad and we do have rain and they don't get to keep anything at all, they won't come back.
Right.
You know?
Right, it would be
Yeah,
good to
so
offer
they should
them
keep a
something.
little of it,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's just my standard, hey, this is our money, we don't want to give any of it up.
Okay, so at that point, what would you like to offer them in the case of a rainout? 10%, so
the whole
that's
contract.
$470.
Yeah, 10% of the contract total.
On any performers moving forward.
On any.
Right, yeah, this one leaves the same, because they've already signed it, but 10% moving forward.
Somebody want to make a motion to that, please?
A motion.
Okay, we got a first. We got a second by Lucy. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, so we're going to offer them 10% of the total contract in the case that it's the day of the concert that it gets.
Need a motion on this.
Okay, we got that settled. All right, would someone like to make a motion regarding the contract itself to the Motoners?
I motion to approve the contract.
We have-
I'll second.
And John has a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. That. Good deal. This brings us to our second public comment period. Seeing none. Staff comments?
Or unless you got questions.
So building on the conversation you all just had about whether, we all know what happens, when you These are not easy decisions to make. We have tried internally to come up with a solid policy for event canceling. Tried to go out to other cities and other places that do events and see. Really no standard for when do you cancel an event when there's impending weather. In our case, back in, had a hurricane barreling towards us. And now we've got, it's going to cost. Night we made the decision to cancel. When I went to bed, the hurricane was coming straight towards us. I woke up the next morning and it had made a hard right and went across Florida. And there was nothing I could do about it at that point. Turned out to be the prettiest day of the year. And whatever. I mean,
You weren't the only one, Brandon.
I know. These are the types of decisions that have to be made. So, when there's money on the line, and I've got a Friday event coming up, and it's Wednesday, and I've got a 90, 70, 80. But I've got a high percentage of rain coming our way. Then would you all feel comfortable with us making the decision? Got money on the line. And in a case like this, you got a group coming from Florida. When should I pull the trigger? When do y'all want to kind of consider making those types of decisions? 4 hours out, 48 hours out? Is it a 70% higher?
I think it's a conversation you also have with the artist.
Well, and two, I mean, sometimes you can look at the weather and this front's coming through. It says 100% chance at whatever time, and a lot of times that you can rely on, but anything less than 100%, we know we can't rely on. So, I mean, 24 hours to me versus 48, unless it's a situation like this front's coming through.
I think this is a special situation because of the fact that they're traveling from such a distance. Most of the bands that we would have come somewhat within the locale. So, I mean, 24 hours would certainly be adequate. I think in this case, I would probably, if we really think that it's going to be bad, I think we need to do it a couple days, as just a Wednesday as opposed to Thursday. Just to give them the courtesy so that they don't have to board the plane or get in their cars and drive.
Or if you're having the conversation with what's your plan of, when do you plan to leave? For weather purposes, we want to let you, be aware and let them tell you, we're going to be leaving on this day at this, about this time. So.
I also think it matters whether they have a covered stage or not, because of all their equipment and instruments and all that. So if it's covered, in the future we'll have a pavilion, that's great. They can back right up to it and load up or whatever, but until that time, I think it's going to be a moving kind of time frame.
I'll consult with you all before I do anything like
Yeah.
that. I just want to know,
Yeah.
before I even start to consult with you all.
Yeah.
I don't want to call you up and say, okay, there's a 40 days.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, unless it's anything less
Unless it's
than
100.
100, you
Yeah.
But that hurricane was, I mean, the governor
It's
already
happening.
declared an emergency. So.
Brandon, it was a good call you made at the time, so.
Didn't go your
A lot
way.
of decisions in my time.
It always seems like you're beating yourself up.
I'll never get over this one.
Yeah. We absolve you of everything, so you're okay.
I can't resolve myself. That one, I'll never get over that one. But I just want to be very careful about these decisions going forward.
Miss Linda, did you have you or Christy have anything you'd like to add? Very good. That's a very good point. Thank you.
With your publications, are they gonna list what we have, or?
Like, the press release is,
Right.
also issues us for all the rest of the first Friday.
I just think we need to promote the first Friday, so it starts getting embedded in people's minds, like, hey, we're gonna be there, so.
The banners.
Okay.
Good job, ladies.
Yes,
You've done
thank
an
you for
excellent
everything.
job. Thank you so much
Thank
for all
you.
your work.
Okay. So staff comments. Any board any board comments? I would like to just make mention, last Thursday, Jenny and I attended the Advanced Downtown Development Training in Athens, Georgia. Okay, that was sponsored by the Georgia Municipal Association. I don't know, I get excited and I like those things. They did a wonderful, wonderful job. They had 4 different speakers that particular day. They covered things about having the correct tools in your toolbox, clarity and unity and purpose and, you know, your goals, having a vision and sticking with that vision. Having a very supportive elective body was an important one that went along with that. Signage, points of interest, various grants and loans. We had a breakout session where they took a particular case study and we divided up and we were actually given that case study and using the information that we had learned in that seminar that particular day, we had each group had to resolve it to the best of it that they could, which I thought was very, very interesting. Food was wonderful. But the point that Jenny and I talked about this on the way home. Philip and Brandon have done just a phenomenal job. I mean, these cities that were represented there by these speakers, these people have spent 20, 25 years, 30 years doing DDA work, okay? They're well informed. They know all the ins and outs, or at least most of them, but this is a new venture for all of us, and especially for Brandon and for Philip. And I want to tell you two guys, you're right up there with the rest of them, even though you haven't had the years of experience. So from me to you and from everybody, thank you for what you guys have done and what you've brought to us. And it's because of you that we're going to be very successful about it. And I just, these people are very encouraging. You know, they force you to think outside the box. And it is just incredible to see what these towns, smaller than us, have done phenomenal jobs in recreating their downtown areas or recreating parks and everything in order to revitalize their towns. And the one thing that I came away with it was the most, and I know it's important, but their thinking is, and I'll quote them when they said, "Don't worry about the mule going blind, just load the cart up." And what they basically mean by that is that you can't always worry about the money. Somehow, some way, you know, the money comes. Of course, every town is the same, but yet they're different. We don't have any historic districts here, and we don't have blighted and, you know, abandoned buildings here. Other towns, we don't have low income buildings that we have to worry about. So we are a little different and fortunate in that regard. But I think we're all on the right track, thanks to you guys. And we appreciate everything. So thank you for that. Is there a need for executive session? Okay. If not, does anybody want to make a motion as to being adjourned? A motion. We have all in favor. Did you have second? John had a second on that one. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all.